Brother, I can't take this stench. I can't take this stench anymore. What should I do? If I tell her directly, I'm afraid of the consequences.
I enlarged my ass for my husband and got a problem. He wasn't supportive. He just said, I stink. Bastard. I came to the gun store to get a gun. You're a dead man.
Kira Jackson stood in front of the bathroom mirror, staring at her reflection in the morning light that filtered through the translucent curtains. 4 months after her buttock augmentation surgery, the results had exceeded her expectations. The Brazilian butt lift had given her the figure she had dreamed of for years. The rounded, firm shape that looked so spectacular in tight dresses and jeans. Tyrone supported her decision at the time, although not without hesitation. "If it makes you happier, why not?" he said when Kira first talked about the surgery. "Just find a really good surgeon." She spent months researching reviews, consulting with doctors, choosing the best clinic in Richmond. The surgery was a success, and recovery was going according to plan too. Tyrone took care of her, bringing food to her bed, helping with bandages, even taking a few days off work to be there for her. They joked that he now had a wife like a rapper, and made plans for a romantic vacation when she was fully recovered. But then something went wrong. The smell had appeared 6 weeks ago, barely noticeable at first, which she'd blamed on the healing process. Dr. Simmons had assured her that a slight discharge and a peculiar odor in the first few months after BBL was normal. But with each passing day, the smell grew more intense, taking on a putrid tinge that was unmistakable. It was the smell of infection, the smell of decaying tissue, the smell that something was seriously wrong with her body. Kira doubled and then tripled the number of showers a day. She tried every possible means of intimate hygiene, special antibacterial gels, expensive perfumes, but nothing helped. The smell came from within, penetrating clothes, cosmetics, any attempt to disguise it. Worst of all, it was concentrated in the intimate zone, making any intimacy impossible. Tyrone's footsteps were heard in the bedroom. Kira quickly pulled on a robe and went out to see her husband, who was going to work. Tyrone was standing by the dresser, fastening the cufflinks on his white shirt. His movements were precise and focused, as they always were when he was getting ready for the big day at the office. Tall, trim, with a short haircut and a neat beard, he always gave the impression of a man who was in control of every aspect of his life. "Good morning," Kira said, stepping closer. Tyrone nodded, not lifting his eyes from the mirror where he was adjusting his tie. Kira saw him instinctively take a half step to the side as she approached. "Morning. You're up early." There was that careful politeness in his voice that had appeared in recent weeks. Not coldness, but not the warmth of before. Kira reached out to adjust the collar of his shirt, but Tyrone had already gone to the window, ostensibly to check the weather. "It's going to rain," he said, looking out the window. "I'll probably get an umbrella." "Do you have an important meeting today?" she asked, trying to keep her tone casual. "Yes, with clients from Richmond. Big inheritance case. Maybe I'll be back late." Tyrone grabbed his jacket from the chair and headed for the door. Kira waited for the customary kiss goodbye, but he only waved, already standing in the doorway. "I'll see you tonight." The door closed, and Kira was left alone with a heavy feeling in her chest. She realized her husband had been avoiding physical contact for weeks, but each time she hoped it was temporary, that the problem would resolve itself, that the smell would finally go away. For the first 2 weeks after the odor appeared, Tyrone tried not to show that anything was wrong. He found inventive ways to avoid intimacy, staying up late in his office, going to bed when Kira was already asleep, citing fatigue or headaches. Kira didn't pay much attention to it at first, writing it off as work stress. But then she noticed the way he wrinkled his nose when she got too close, the way he held his breath when they were in the same room, how he tries to sit farther away at the dinner table. These small, almost imperceptible signs were adding up to a terrifying picture. A week ago, when Kira tried to hug him in the kitchen, Tyrone couldn't stand it. "Kira, we need to talk," he said then, gently releasing himself from her embrace. "About this operation. About what's happening now." "What do you mean?" she asked, even though she knew exactly what he meant. "You have an infection. Or something. That smell. It's very strong. It won't go away." Kira felt her cheeks burn with shame. "The doctor said it's normal for the first few months." "Kira, it's been 4 months, and it's only getting worse." Tyrone spoke carefully, trying not to hurt her feelings, but the truth was painful. "I know you're trying to deal with it. I see how much time you spend in the bathroom, how many things you buy. But it's not working." "Oh, what do you suggest?" Kira asked, feeling the tears coming. "Go to a doctor. See another doctor if you need to. Find out what you can do." They hadn't talked about it much since then, but the problem hung between them as an unspoken reproach. Tyrone tried to act normal, but Kira could see the weariness in his eyes. Notice how he involuntarily pulled away from her. Left alone, Kira made herself some coffee and sat at the kitchen table, watching the raindrops on the window. Their house in the suburbs of Roanoke had always seemed like the perfect place for a family. A 2-story cottage with a neat lawn, a white picket fence, and flower beds she'd planted and tended herself. They'd bought this house the year after they'd married, planning to raise their children here, to grow old together on the veranda overlooking the mountains. Now it all seemed like a mockery of fate. The phone rang, distracting her from her sad musings. Her friend's name, Jasmine, popped up on the screen. "Hello, beautiful." Jasmine's cheerful voice filled the kitchen with energy. "How are you doing? How's that gorgeous new butt of yours? Tyrone must be going crazy." Kira cringed. Jasmine had always been straightforward, and Kira had liked it before, but now such frankness seemed painful. "It's okay," Kira lied. "It's healing. All right? Girl, you spent $8,000 on this operation. The result should be not just fine, but stunning." Jasmine laughed, but Kira couldn't share her amusement. "What about Tyrone? Can't keep his hands off you?" The pause lengthened, and Jasmine, always sensitive to the nuances in her friend's voice, immediately became wary. "Kira, is something wrong? You've been acting weird." "No, I'm fine. I'm just a little tired." "Listen, why don't we get together tonight? We could go out for lunch, talk. I think you're hiding something." Kira was about to agree, but then she imagined sitting in the restaurant, worrying about whether anyone could smell it, so she said no. "Maybe some other time? I have a lot of clients today." "Okay, but you call me if you need anything. And don't blow off your girlfriends because of a nice ass." Jasmine laughed. After the conversation, Kira went to the beauty salon, where she worked as a beautician for 7 years. Her office was located in a prestigious area of the city, and the clientele was appropriate. Wealthy women who could afford expensive procedures. Usually, Kira loved her work, enjoyed helping people feel more confident and beautiful, but in recent weeks, each procedure was given to her with difficulty. Kira was constantly worried about whether the clients would notice the odor. She had turned on a powerful air freshener in her office and put on a diffuser with essential oils, but she still couldn't relax. Every glance from a client seemed suspicious to her. Every pause in conversation, a sign that her secret was out. Her first client was Regina Carter, the wife of a local banker, who came in for Botox every 4 months, with the punctuality of a Swiss watch. "Honey, you look a little pale," Regina said, as she settled into the chair. "Is everything all right?" Kira turned on the lamp and began to examine the client's face, trying to concentrate on her work. "Everything's fine, Mrs. Carter, just a little sleep-deprived." But as the procedure progressed, Kira noticed Regina take a few odd sniffs and even pull away slightly. Kira's heart beat faster. Was the odor so strong that even strangers could smell it? The next client, a young girl named Brittany, came in for a facial. During the procedure, she asked several times if something was burning in the kitchen, and suggested checking the trash can. Kira struggled to hold back tears as she made excuses. By the end of the workday, she was emotionally exhausted. Every customer seemed like a potential judge, every look a sentence. Kira realized that she couldn't go on like this, that she needed to do something about the problem, but she didn't know how. At home, she went straight to the bathroom and began her nightly ritual. A hot shower with antibacterial soap, a special intimate hygiene gel that cost insane amounts of money but had no effect. She scrubbed herself until her skin was red from the friction, hoping she could literally wash away the odor, but it remained, as if embedded in her flesh forever. Tyrone came home at 8 in the evening, when Kira was already cooking dinner. She'd chosen his favorite dish, salmon with lemongrass and steamed vegetables, hoping that a pleasant evening would help restore at least some of the intimacy between them. "How was your day?" she asked as her husband entered the kitchen. "Not easy." The customers were more difficult than expected. Tyrone pulled a bottle of beer from the refrigerator and sat down at the table, leaving as much distance between himself and Kira as possible. "How about you?" Also, not easy. Kira wanted to tell him about her worries, about how ashamed she felt at work, but she saw the tiredness in his eyes and kept silent. At dinner, they talked about work, about the news, about plans for the weekend. The conversation was polite, but strained, as if between well-acquainted colleagues, not between spouses. Kira tried several times to move closer to her husband, to touch his hand, but each time she felt him instinctively pull away. "Do you remember how we dreamed of going to Europe when I recovered from my surgery?" Kira asked, trying to get back to the lighter memories. Tyrone nodded, but there wasn't the same enthusiasm in his eyes. "I remember. Maybe we should first address the medical issues first." The phrase sounded like a sentence. Kira realized that their plans for the future now depended on whether she could deal with her problem. After dinner, Tyrone announced that he had some paperwork to do and locked himself in the home office. Kira was left alone with dirty dishes and heavy thoughts. She washed plates and thought about how things had changed in the last few months. The surgery was supposed to make her more confident, more attractive, but instead, it had ruined her marriage. Late that night, when Kira was already in bed, Tyrone finally joined her. He lay as far away from her as possible with his back turned. Kira listened to his breathing and realized that he was awake, that the tension was coming from him in waves. "Tyrone," she whispered. "Can't we talk? I'm tired, Kira. Let's do it tomorrow." But she had a feeling that talking tomorrow would be even harder. Kira tried to move cautiously closer to her husband, to put her hand on his shoulder. And then the thing she feared most happened. Tyrone pulled away abruptly and sat on the edge of the bed, holding his hands over his head. "I can't," he said quietly, but loud enough for her to hear. "You can't what?" Kira asked, though deep down she already knew the answer. Tyrone turned to her, and in the moonlight streaming through the window, she could see the pain in his eyes. "I can't keep pretending everything's okay. That smell. Kira, it's unbearable. I've tried to get used to it. I thought it would go away, but it's just getting worse. Kira's heart is in pieces." But the doctor said, "To hell with the doctor." Tyrone raised his voice for the first time in weeks. "We both know this isn't normal. You feel it yourself. You see how people react. When I came home today, I could smell it in the hallway." Kira covered her face with her hands, feeling the tears finally break through. "I don't know what to do," she sobbed. "I've tried everything. Maybe I need time." "Time? Kira, it's been a month and a half since we've been close. I've been sleeping in the guest room for a week now because I can't be near you at night." This was news to Kira. She thought he was just lingering in the study, not realizing her husband was purposely avoiding their bedroom. "Why didn't you tell me?" What was I supposed to say? That my wife smells so bad I want to puke? That I'm afraid to touch her? Tyrone's words were brutal but honest. Kira realized that he was suffering too, that he had tried to save their marriage, but he couldn't anymore. "I'll go to the doctor tomorrow," she promised through her tears. Tyrone nodded and got out of bed. "I'll sleep in the guest room until you solve this problem." He walked out of the bedroom, leaving Kira alone with her pain and shame. She spent the rest of the night sleepless, staring at the ceiling and realizing that her marriage was hanging by a thread. In the morning, Kira called Dr. Simmons's clinic, but it turned out that the next appointment wasn't for another 2 weeks. The despair that had built up overnight forced her to act more decisively. She found contacts on the internet for another plastic surgeon, Dr. Roy Campbell, who specialized in correcting complications from cosmetic surgery. His assistant said the doctor could see her the same day if the case was really urgent. "Yes, it's urgent," Kira said into the phone, trying not to cry. "Very urgent." Dr. Campbell's clinic was in downtown Roanoke, a state-of-the-art glass and steel medical center. Kira arrived there at 11 in the morning, spending half an hour showering and trying to mask the smell with a strong perfume. The result was dubious. She now smelled like a mixture of expensive French toilet water and something putrid. The receptionist, a young girl with short curls, smiled welcomingly at her, but Kira noticed her face change slightly as she moved closer to the counter. The girl tactfully moved away under the pretense of looking for the right documents. In the waiting room, Kira sat in the far corner, away from the other patients. It was cool and smelled of antiseptic, which masked her problem a bit. She leafed through a healthy lifestyle magazine, not reading the text, and thought about what she would tell the doctor. How to explain that the most expensive surgery of her life had turned into a nightmare. Dr. Roy Campbell turned out to be a man in his 50s, with a graying beard and kind eyes behind thin-rimmed glasses. His office was tastefully furnished. Dark furniture, diplomas on the walls, a large window overlooking the city park. When Kira entered, he rose from his desk and shook her hand, but she noticed him frown imperceptibly. "Sit down, please. Tell me what's bothering you." Kira sat down in the leather chair opposite the doctor and began to tell her story. Surgery 4 months ago, normal healing for the first few weeks, and then the onset of an odor that grew stronger and stronger. Dr. Campbell listened intently, making notes in his notebook. "Where was the surgery done?" he asked. "Dr. Simmons's clinic in Richmond." Dr. Campbell nodded, but his expression became more serious. "I see. What did your operating surgeon say about the odor?" "That it's normal in the first few months after surgery, that it would go away on its own." "Show me the surgical site." The exam was unpleasant and humiliating. Kira lay on the couch, feeling the doctor examine her buttocks where the fat had been transferred. Even through the medical mask, Dr. Campbell wrinkled his nose, and Kira knew the smell was truly horrible. "Mrs. Jackson," the doctor said when the examination was over, "you have a serious infection. See these spots?" He pointed to several dark spots on the skin. "That's tissue necrosis. Some of the transferred fat has died off and is decomposing inside." Kira felt the ground slipping away from under her feet. "What does that mean?" "It means we need to reoperate. We need to remove all the necrotic tissue, clean out the cavities, maybe put in drains. Without treatment, the infection could spread further." "Will the odor go away?" Dr. Campbell took off his glasses and wiped them with a tissue, clearly considering the answer. "If we remove all sources of infection, yes, the odor should go away. But it'll take time, multiple surgeries, long-term antibiotic treatment, and there's no guarantee the results will be perfect." "How long?" 3 to 6 months, maybe more. Kira closed her eyes, imagining how Tyrone would react to the news. "Doctor, how soon can we do the surgery?" "I can schedule it for next week, but first I need to run some tests, consult with the anesthesiologist." "No, you don't understand," Kira interrupted him. "I need to solve this problem now. My marriage is falling apart because of this odor." Dr. Campbell looked at her sympathetically. "Mrs. Jackson, I understand this is hard, but medicine doesn't work on a now-and-then basis. It takes time to do the right thing. Kira left the clinic with an appointment for tests and a tentative surgery date of next Thursday. A week of waiting seemed like an eternity, but the doctor was adamant. First, they had to determine the type of infection to find the right antibiotics. At home, she caught Tyrone in the living room. He was working on his laptop, spreading out documents on the coffee table. When he saw his wife, he closed the computer and looked at her carefully. "Well?" "What did the doctor say?" Kira sat on the opposite edge of the couch and recounted the visit to Dr. Campbell, about the tissue necrosis, the need for repeated surgeries, the months of treatment. Tyrone listened in silence, and with every word she said, his face grew darker and darker. "So it's going to be a long time," he said when she was done. "The doctor says 3 to 6 months, maybe less if we're lucky. Or maybe more." There was no anger in his voice, just weariness. But for Kira, it was even more painful. "Tyrone, I know it's hard, but we can try." "Try what?" He stood up and walked across the room. "Kira, I can't be in the same room with you for more than 15 minutes. I've been sleeping in the guest room for over a week now. Yesterday, I caught myself making excuses not to come home." Those words hit Kira like a slap in the face. "But it's temporary. When surgery what? Solves all the problems?" "Kira," the doctor said, 3 to 6 months, maybe more. It's not temporary. It's a very long time." Tyrone stopped at the window, looking outside where the fall rain was beginning to fall. "Do you have any idea what it's like to live in your own house and hold your breath all the time? What it's like to avoid your own wife because she stinks enough to make you sick?" "Don't say that," Kira whispered. "How am I supposed to say it? We haven't made love in over a month. I can't hold you, kiss you, or even just sit next to you. Our friends are starting to ask questions about why we don't show up together at events anymore." Kira remembered how they had declined an invitation to Tyrone's co-worker's birthday party last week. At the time, he'd said he wasn't feeling well, but now she understood the real reason. "We'll be fine," she said, not quite believing her own words. "We'll make it?" Tyrone turned to her, and she saw something frightening in his eyes. "Kira, I can't do this anymore. I'm not a saint. I can't live like a monk in my own house." "What are you trying to say?" Tyrone sat down in the chair across from the couch, leaving as much distance between them as possible. "I think we should take a break." "What break?" Kira's voice trembled. "To live apart, until you solve this problem." Kira felt the world crumbling around her. "You want a divorce? I want you to move out. Temporarily. Find an apartment, get treatment, and then we'll see." "And if the treatment doesn't work?" Tyrone was silent for a long time, and that silence was enough for an answer. "Are you serious?" Kira stood up, feeling the rage rising in her. "You're kicking me out of my own home because of a medical problem?" "It's not just a medical problem, Kira. It's a problem that's ruining our lives." "It's not my fault. It's a complication from surgery." "And who forced you to have that surgery?" Tyrone raised his voice for the first time. "Who wanted that goddamn ass? You were fine without it. You agreed to it. I agreed to it because I thought it would make you happier. I didn't know it would make my life hell." They screamed at each other, and all the resentments they had accumulated over the months came pouring out. Kira accused her husband of being heartless. Tyrone accused her of being selfish. The words grew harsher, more painful. "Do you want to know the truth?" Tyrone said when they were both exhausted. "The truth is that I feel nothing but disgust for you anymore. I can't look at you and not think about that smell. You ruined yourself with this surgery, and now you want me to heroically suffer the consequences." Those words were like a dagger to the heart. "So you don't love me anymore?" Kira whispered. "I don't know," Tyrone answered honestly. "Maybe when you solve this problem, the feelings will return. Or maybe it's too late." Kira stood in the middle of the living room where they had spent so many happy evenings and felt her world finally crumble. The man she had loved for 5 years, the man she had given the best years of her life to, was telling her he couldn't look at her anymore. You have a week to find a place, Tyrone said, rising from his chair. I'll help with the money if you need it, but I can't live like this anymore. He left the room, leaving Kira alone with the realization that her marriage was over, not because of cheating, not because of different outlooks on life, but because of a smell she couldn't control. Kira sank to the couch and cried, bitterly, hopelessly, realizing that even tears could not wash away the humiliation she felt. The next 3 days passed in agonizing silence as Tyrone left for work early in the morning when Kira was still asleep and returned late at night, locking himself in his office or going straight to the guest room. They communicated only by notes left on the kitchen table, about bills, about household matters, about the need to buy groceries. The house that used to be filled with their conversations and laughter was now like a museum where two strangers existed in parallel, avoiding intersections. Kira spent those days looking for a rental apartment, though every call to realtors caused her physical pain. She looked at ads online, called numbers, made appointments, but canceled at the last minute every time. Moving out meant admitting that her marriage was truly over, that 5 years of life together could be crossed off because of a medical problem. On Thursday morning, as she sat at the kitchen table with her laptop, looking at the next round of studio apartments, the phone rang. It was the secretary from the law firm where Tyrone worked. Mrs. Jackson, this is Cheryl from Mr. Jackson's office. He wanted me to tell you he's going to be late tonight. A meeting with the partners. Kira thanked and disconnected the phone, feeling her heart clench. Tyrone was now even messaging her through her secretary, avoiding face-to-face communication. On Friday, she decided to act. Kira knew that on Friday nights, Tyrone's co-workers traditionally gathered at Raven's Bar on Jefferson Street to celebrate the end of the work week. She dressed in a strict navy blue suit, carefully applied makeup, and drove there, hoping to talk to her husband in an informal setting. The bar was full of people, office workers, lawyers, bankers, all those who made up Roanoke's business elite. Kira found Tyrone at a table in the far corner of the bar. He was sitting with 3 colleagues, 2 men and a woman Kira recognized as Monica Price, one of the firm's junior partners, a beautiful, intelligent, ambitious woman of 32 who had always impressed Kira as someone who knew exactly what she wanted out of life. As Kira approached the table, the conversation broke off. Tyrone looked up and something like irritation flashed in his eyes. "Kira, what are you doing here?" "Hi," she said, trying to smile. "I thought I'd stop by and say hello to your co-workers." The men said hello politely, but Kira noticed the way they looked at each other. Monica smiled a cold, professional smile. "How are you, Kira? It's been a while." "I'm fine, thank you." Kira sat down in the vacant chair next to Tyrone, but he immediately moved away. She tried to join the conversation, but felt her presence was unwelcome. Tyrone's co-workers were polite but reserved, as if aware of the problems in their marriage. After half an hour, Tyrone stood up. "I should go home. Kira, shall we go?" They left the bar in silence. In the parking lot, Tyrone finally spoke. "Why did you go there?" "I wanted to see you. We hardly ever talk." "Kira, I told you, I need time." "How much time?" she asked. "A week? A month? A year?" Tyrone didn't answer, and that silence was more eloquent than any words. "You've already made up your mind, haven't you?" Kira said. "You don't want to try to save our marriage anymore." "I don't know what I want," Tyrone replied in a tired voice. "All I know is that I can't live like this." On Saturday morning, Kira woke up to the sound of a printer running in Tyrone's office. She went downstairs and saw him at his desk surrounded by stacks of documents. On the computer screen, a page of some legal website was open. "What are you doing?" she asked. Tyrone looked up, and Kira saw a determination in his eyes that hadn't been there before. "Researching a divorce in Virginia." The words hit her like a physical pain. "Are you serious?" "We can get an amicable divorce. No scandal, no division of assets in court. Civilized." "Civilized?" Kira felt her rage rising. You kick me out of the house, file for divorce, and you call that civilized? Kira, we both realize our marriage is over. Why prolong the agony? Our marriage is over? She came closer to the table. Tyrone, I have a medical problem. A temporary medical problem. You're abandoning me at the worst time of my life. It's not temporary, Tyrone said without lifting his eyes from the paperwork. The doctor said 3 to 6 months, maybe more. I can't wait that long. Can't or won't. It doesn't matter. The result is the same. Kira grabbed one of the papers from the table. It was a printout of an article on divorce in the presence of insurmountable differences. Insurmountable differences, she read aloud. Is this about my smell? Kira, don't make this any harder than it has to be. In Virginia, you can get a divorce simply on the basis of a year's separation, or 6 months if the spouses have no minor children in common and there's a property division agreement. His businesslike tone made her white hot. You've already thought of everything. You've already found a way to get rid of me as quickly as possible. I'm thinking of both our interests. Our interests? Kira threw the paper on the floor. You're only thinking about yourself, about how uncomfortable you are, how disgusted you are. You don't care what happens to me. Tyrone finally raised his eyes and looked at her. Of course I care. That's why I'm willing to help you with rent, medical expenses. With money. You think money will solve the problem? What else can I do? Continue living in hell? Keep pretending that everything's fine? Kira sank into the chair across from his desk, feeling her strength draining away. You could have just waited. Support me. I tried. For a month and a half I've tried, but I can't do it anymore. So now what? I move out, you file for divorce, and then what? Find yourself a new wife who doesn't smell. I don't know, Tyrone answered honestly. Right now, all I'm thinking about is surviving. Survive? Kira laughed bitterly. Tyrone, I'm the one struggling to survive. I'm the one who's ashamed to show my face to people. It's my world that's falling apart. Mine is falling apart too, he said quietly. You think this is easy for me? You think I wanted it to turn out this way? There was pain in his voice, and for the first time in days, Kira saw him not as a cold, selfish man, but as a suffering man. But that realization didn't bring relief. On the contrary, it made the situation even more hopeless. Tyrone, maybe we could try couples therapy, or... Kira, therapy won't solve the odor problem, but it might help us find a way to live with it temporarily. I don't want to learn to live with it, he said, and he sounded adamant. I want it gone. The conversation ended. Kira realized that the man she loved was not willing to fight for their relationship. He chose the easy way out. Escape. On Sunday, Kira finally found a suitable apartment, a one-room studio in a new apartment complex on the outskirts of the city. The landlady, an elderly woman named Dolores Franklin who lived in a neighboring state, agreed to rent the apartment without a face-to-face meeting, contenting herself with photos of the paperwork and a translation of the deposit. Kira signed the lease on Monday and started packing on Tuesday. It turned out to be much more difficult than she had imagined. Every single thing reminded her of the happy moments of their life together. The dress she wore on their first date, the mug that said, "Best wife in the world," that Tyrone had given her for her second birthday after their wedding. The pictures of their honeymoon in the Bahamas. Tyrone helped her silently, carrying the boxes to the car. They worked as a well-coordinated team, avoiding unnecessary conversation. When everything was packed, Kira looked around the empty bedroom where they'd spent so many nights making plans for the future. Is this everything? Tyrone asked. Yeah, I guess so. She picked up her bag and headed for the exit, but stopped at the door. Tyrone, if the operation goes well, if the smell disappears, is there any chance we could try it again? He was silent for a long time, and Kira could see him struggling with himself. I don't know, he said finally. I honestly don't know. Kira nodded and walked out of the house that was no longer her home. She burst into tears in the car, realizing that the most important chapter of her life had just closed. 5 years of marriage had ended, not because of great love for another person, not because of insurmountable differences in personality, but because of an odor she couldn't control. Her new apartment greeted her with sterile emptiness and a view of the parking lot. Kira arranged her things, trying to create a semblance of coziness, but everything felt foreign and temporary. She lay on the new bed in her new apartment and realized that for the first time in 5 years, she was falling asleep alone. And she didn't know when that would change, or if it would change at all. The surgery was scheduled for Thursday. Kira spent Wednesday in preparation, took all the necessary tests, had a consultation with the anesthesiologist, signed a bunch of documents. Dr. Campbell explained to her that the surgery would be complicated and may require several stages, but he was optimistic. "We're going to do everything we can," he said. "But remember, the rehabilitation may take several months." In the evening, Kira called Tyrone to inform him about the surgery tomorrow. "Okay," he said. "Keep me posted on how it goes." "Maybe you could come?" she asked hopefully. "Kira, I don't think that's a good idea." "But it's a major operation. What if something goes wrong? You have the doctor's contact information. If anything happens, I'll get a call." The coldness of his coldness had finished her off. Kira realized that even at the most difficult time in her life, she could only count on herself. "You're right. We have to fit everything into one chapter. I'll rewrite chapter 4, shortening the beginning and adding the murder, the arrival of the police, and Detective Harris's investigation in the same amount of space." The surgery went badly. Dr. Campbell found that the infection had spread deeper than the examinations had indicated. The odor was lessened but not gone, and the next surgery was not scheduled until a month later. During the 3 weeks of recovery, Tyrone didn't visit Kira once. On Friday, Kira drove home to pick up the rest of her belongings. An unfamiliar gray Honda was parked in the driveway. Entering the house through her key, Kira froze. At the kitchen table sat Monica Price in Kira's white silk robe, sipping coffee from her mug. "What are you doing here?" Kira asked. "Living," Monica replied nonchalantly. "Tyrone and I are in a serious relationship. We're not officially divorced yet, but you haven't lived together for over a month." Footsteps sounded from upstairs, and Tyrone appeared in his birthday shirt. "Kira, you didn't warn me. You didn't warn me you brought a whore here." "Don't talk to Monica like that," Tyrone interjected. "Are you protecting her? From your own wife?" "You're not my wife anymore. I have the right to build a new relationship." "It's only been a month, and that was long enough to realize we were gone." Kira looked at the man she'd lived with for 5 years and didn't recognize him. "How long have you been fucking her?" "Kira, answer me!" Monica looked up from the newspaper with irritation. "Your marriage ended when you started smelling like a dumpster. Tyrone found someone who can give him a normal life. Get out of my house." "It's not your house," Monica replied calmly. "And I'm not going anywhere." Kira looked at Tyrone, waiting for support. "Monica's right," he said. "It's not your place anymore." Something broke inside Kira. She grabbed the vase of chrysanthemums and threw it at the wall. The vase shattered with a crash. "What are you doing?" Tyrone exclaimed. "What you should have done a long time ago." Kira started throwing the dishes they had picked out together. The plates smashed against the walls, filling the kitchen with a clanging sound. "Stop!" Tyrone tried to grab her, but she lashed out. "Don't touch me!" "She's crazy! Call the police!" Monica screamed. "I ruined your marriage and I'm crazy?" Kira lunged at her, but Tyrone intercepted his wife. "That's enough! You're acting like a psychopath! For defending my marriage, for causing a riot in someone else's house." Tyrone grabbed his phone and started dialing the police. Kira didn't wait. She ran out of the house, took the wedding picture off the wall and threw it on the floor, breaking the glass. That same day, she bought a gun at a gun store on Main Street. She spent the weekend contemplating the humiliation. Monday night, she drove to the house again with the gun in her purse. Tyrone opened the door, saw her, and frowned. "Kira, we talked about everything on Friday." "No, not everything." She walked into the house without waiting for an invitation. In the living room, Monica was sitting on the couch, flipping through a magazine. When she saw Kira, she wrinkled her nose. "You again?" "Tyrone, kick her out." "Shut up," Kira said, pulling a gun out of her bag. Tyrone turned pale. "Kira, put that away. Don't do anything stupid." "Stupid?" Kira pointed the gun at Monica. "The only stupid thing I did was trust you." Monica tried to stand up, but Kira pointed the gun at her. "Sit still, bitch." "Kira, please," Tyrone said in a pleading voice. "Put the gun down. We can talk this through." "Talk?" Kira laughed hysterically. "Discuss what? How you fucked her while I was in the hospital? How you planned my replacement?" "No one planned for anyone." "You're lying!" Kira turned the gun on her husband. "You wanted to get rid of me from the beginning." The smell was just a convenient excuse. It wasn't. Then why is she here? Why in my robe, in my kitchen? Tyrone was silent, and his silence was more eloquent than words. 5 years, Kira whispered. 5 years I gave you, and you threw me away like garbage. Kira. In sickness and in health, remember? The oath before the altar? She pulled the trigger. The shot rang deafeningly through the silence of the house. Tyrone clutched his chest and collapsed to the floor. Monica groaned in horror. Kira stood over her husband's body and fired again, and another, and another. 12 times she pulled the trigger, releasing all the pain and rage of the past months into the dead body. Each shot was for every humiliation, every sleepless night, every tear. When the bullets ran out, there was silence in the house. Monica huddled in the corner of the couch, her whole body shaking. Kira looked at her and tossed the empty gun to the floor. "Call the police," she said calmly. 17 minutes later, patrol cars pulled up to the house. The first to arrive was Detective Damian Harris, a 45-year-old man with tired eyes and a graying beard. He'd been working homicide for 15 years and had seen things, but the sight of a bullet-riddled body could still shake him. Kira sat on the porch, smoking a cigarette and waiting. When the detective approached her, she looked up. "Were you the shooter?" he asked. "Yes. Where's the gun?" "In the house, on the living room floor." Harris nodded and went inside. Tyrone's body lay in the middle of the room in a pool of blood. 12 bullet holes, most in the chest and abdomen. A Glock lay nearby, out of ammo. There was a woman in a white coat sobbing in the corner. "Did you see what happened?" Detective Monica asked. She just came in and started shooting," Monica sobbed. "No warning. Like a madwoman." Harris turned back to Kira. "Mrs. Jackson, you're under arrest on suspicion of murder. You have the right to remain silent." Kira listened to the formal reading of her rights and thought about how it was finally over. The pain, the humiliation, the attempts to save what could no longer be saved. Now there was only emptiness and a strange relief. An hour later, she was taken to the station. Harris finished processing the scene by midnight. The motive was clear: jealousy and revenge. Witnesses in, evidence is overwhelming, suspect confessed. Easy case for the DA. Kira Jackson's case went to trial 3 days later.